Well, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all here. My name's Gordon. I'm the interim director of Fourth Spring Inter-Community Group. And on behalf of Fourth Spring, I just want to welcome all of you to this evening as part of the Four Corners Festival. Our relationship with Four Corners, this is not our first Four Corners event, is really important to us. And so any way in which we can be helpful and supportive of the work of Four Corners, we're really keen to help out in any and every way that we can. So not only do I want to welcome you, but I want to welcome our friends from the Four Corners Festival here this evening as well. So welcome to the West. West is best. Say the Westies to me, being an Eastie myself. But apparently West is best. It's lovely to have you here. This is a very interesting building because it's a building in a peace wall. The longest peace interface in Belfast. And we sit in the middle of it. So the front of the building faces out onto Catholic, nationalist, West Belfast, Springfield Road. And as you walk through the building, you kind of walk virtually through the peace wall. And so the back of the building is in Protestant Unionist Woodvale. So it's a very interesting building being in a wall. And that actually makes it really important for us as a centre for peace building. And that's what we want to do more and more of, because everything that we do here is about bringing two communities together. And so everything we do in this building in the wall, is about bringing the Catholic community and the Protestant community together. That's what we're really about. And at the minute, we as Fourth Spring are trying to buy this building that used to be a Methodist church, because we want to turn it into much more of a peace-building centre and to try and run lots more peace-building activities in what we believe is a very significant space in Belfast. Here in Fourth Spring, we do lots of different things. We have Springers, which is our after-schools daycare, which then becomes full daycare during the school holiday times. And we draw children between the ages of 5 and 11 from 5 or 6 different local primary schools on both sides of the wall. So Protestant and Catholic kids are learning to play together, learning to use each other's names, learning to get to know each other's families and each other's schools from the age of 5. In a context where education is still segregated and lots of Protestants and Catholics don't meet each other until they're 18. From here, they're playing together from 5 years old, which is important to us. Then we have our MUMO project, M-U-M-O, Moving Up, Moving On. And we work with local Protestant and Catholic schools, again, on both sides of the 30-foot fence. It is astonishing to me. We have the Workman Avenue gates here just beside us. Workman Avenue is this to the left, and then Lanark Way. These two communities are still locked apart at 9 o'clock every night. A security company drives along the road and locks the gates. And then at 7 o'clock in the morning, a security guard opens the gates again. In 2024, we are still locking gates and keeping these communities apart. And 74% of people who live in these communities don't want the wall taken down. What does that say? Do we still feel safe? And so everything we do here, our MUMO project, bringing together, we have children on both sides of the fence. We have pupil support workers embedded in the schools, and we have family support workers who work here in this building, bringing mums and dads and kids together in families to learn everything from cooking to parenting to money management to mental health activities, all that kind of stuff. Our mums group is just about to release their first record. We're having a record launch on Thursday morning. We're going to be in the charts by the weekend. I'm not entirely sure of that, but we're going to do our best. And then we have 4 youth workers based here. Youth Matters is our youth project. And we have a big hall out the back here. And we have Junior Youth Club and Senior Youth Club. And then we have detached youth work on the streets, when our youth workers will don their big red coats and they will go out and walk around the streets here, talking to young people, many of whom get drawn into paramilitary activity, many of whom get drawn into using drugs of all kinds. It's a tricky world for young people, certainly in West North Belfast these days. So our guys are out on the streets, building relationships, getting to know people as they go. So there's lots of other stuff goes on in this inter-community group. We have everything from tea dances to drama groups to autism support to women's groups. We're just starting a men's shed. There's lots of stuff goes on in this place. But it's all about bringing communities together across an interface until the day the interface, we hope and pray, comes down and things can be even better looking forward. So you're very welcome into this space. I just wanted to try and locate you in terms of where we are. The loos are just by the front door as you came in. So you go down and just turn to the right is where the loos are. And there is tea and coffee available at the end and refreshments in what we call the minor hall, just back through those doors and first left. We'll see you right if you take a first left. That's where we are. I think that's everything I need to say. Gerard from Four Corners Festival is going to say a bit more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for that warm welcome, and thanks for accommodating us here. I'm glad to see people have found their way here after a sort of fairly last-minute change of venue. We were supposed to be in the north of the city for tonight. We're now in the west. But we hope that there's people here from all parts of the city, from north, south, east, and west, and also joining us online. That we may have people from all around Belfast and beyond. The theme of this year's festival is our stories towards a culture of hope. And that theme runs through all of the events that we do. I have a feeling that tonight maybe encapsulates that theme as well as, if not better than, all the nights we're going to have as part of this festival. We are very privileged and delighted tonight to be here, but also to have with us Elma Walsh, who is going to be sharing with us her story and the legacy of her son and all that he did to bring hope to young people. Before we get into that, though, I have a little bit of admin to go through. First of all, it's really helpful to us if you can fill in some of our questionnaires afterwards. We do hope you enjoy the event. We'd ask you to complete our online survey afterwards. It enables us to use your feedback to plan future festivals and also to report back to our funders, which is very important to us. We'll share a link at the end of the event, and it can be found on our website and via QR codes that are around the back. Donations as well. This is a free festival. It's free to attend. We're really grateful to our funders and our friends who enable this to be the case and enable this to be a free festival. If you're able to donate to the festival, either on a monthly basis or on a one-off donation, we'd so appreciate your support. The last few nights, people have been selling books for different book launches and different things we've had at this festival. I don't think there's anything being sold tonight, so hopefully people have a wee bit of spare change. If you do, you can make a little donation on your way out. Information on how to do these donations is on envelopes distributed, which will be at the back this evening on the way out. Envelopes can be used to sign up to our mailing list or to gift aid your donation. You just place them in the donation buckets, which will be at the door. That just leaves it for me to hand over to Steve, who's going to introduce our musicians for this evening. The Fitzroy Collective, slightly shorter in number, smaller in number than was planned, but we're really looking forward to hearing them. Thank you.
we are attempting to break a world record as the festival that takes the most people to introduce an evening. And we seem to be succeeding very well at that. The other thing that we are succeeding at is not learning the lessons that we learned at last year's festival. But that's not for you to find out. Your thing is to come next year and see when we've learned them all. Can I just add something to what Jared's saying before I move to what I'm supposed to do? People asked me last night in various places in the room, what happens to those surveys? Do you ever read them? Not only do we read them, but by the time we get together for our first committee meeting of the next year, our amazing admin, Megan, has them done in pie charts with different colours and all the stats as to where you came from, what event you were at, what you thought of that event, etc., etc. These are used and they are incredibly valuable for us as we go to funders who want to know if anybody came. If you don't fill out a form, they have no real proof that anybody came. So please, if you can, go online and do that. That would be fantastic. Sorry to go on about that. I'm going to leave the introduction of Elma to Shannon, who's coming a little bit later. What we try to do when we have someone who's going to speak, and I think tonight will be poignant, and I think there'll be some depth to it, we try to do something slightly lighter in between, a little bit of music or whatever else. And this year I'm delighted that my friends from Fitzroy Presbyterian, the Gospel According to series, we take artists and we go through their work and we try to work out what the gospel means in the work of Bob Dylan, U2, Bruce Springsteen, and we recently did Sinead O'Connor for various reasons, and we thought some of those songs that we did at Sinead would be good tonight, since, of course, guitarists have fallen sick, singers have fallen sick, so you're not getting the full show, and I'm so glad that Caroline and Shannon have voices that can be heard, and that Danny and Norman can accompany them tonight. So the first two songs from the Gospel According to that we did last year that we're going to hear tonight, one of them you'll all probably know, or you should all know. I'd be surprised. Well, there's young people in the house. You've got to understand young people don't listen to the quality of music that some of the rest of us have. You've got to be worried for them. But there will be other things in their lives, I'm sure, that will make up for it. So we're going to hear The Streets of London, which is a song of loneliness, a song of injustice, a song of the marginalised. And then after that, Caroline will introduce the second song. She does it better than me. So first up, from the Fitzroy Collective Depleted, we have Gordon and Norman.
I'm not actually Gordon. I'm Caroline. This first song, those of you who are of our vintage will know this song. Feel free to join in if you do. I read that Ralph McTell, there have been 200 versions of this song, and Ralph McTell always says that his favourite was the one that Sinead O'Connor recorded. She also said it was the hardest song she ever recorded. She just found it so moving to think about the loneliness and poverty that she had to keep running out of the studio to cry. So it took her a long time to get through it. Have you seen the old man at the closed down market, kicking up the papers with his worn out shoes? In his eyes you'll see no pride, hands held loosely by his side. Yesterday's papers telling yesterday's news. So how can you tell me that you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind. Have you seen the old girl who walks the streets of London? Dirt in her hair and her clothes in rags. She's got no time for talking, she just keeps right on walking, carrying her home into carrier bags. So how can you tell me that you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind. This side of the room's definitely winning. In the all-night cafe at 11:15, same old man sitting there on his own, looking at the world over the rim of his teacup. Each tea lasts an hour, then he wanders home alone. So how can you tell me that you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind. You young ones need to check out Ralph McTell. He's an oldie but a goodie. The second song that we're going to sing is one that Sinead O'Connor wrote herself. It's called In This Heart. It's very much a song of love, but of every aspect of love, of the pain, of the longing. And you could hear it as a lullaby or possibly a song about her mother, who she had a very difficult relationship with, or even as a conversation, it's what I think it is, conversation between her and God. In this heart lies for you a love born only for you, who sings only to you. My love, my love, my love, I am waiting for you, for only to adore you. My heart is for you, my love, my love, my love. This is my grief for you, for only the loss of you, the hurting of
Hello. Hi. I am Shannon, and I'm on the Four Corners Committee, and I am another person to introduce another person this evening. But it really is my pleasure to introduce to you all Elma Walsh. As Jared mentioned, Elma's story really is one of hope, and one that I'm really looking forward to everybody hearing and it being shared with everybody. So thank you for being here tonight, and we're really looking forward to hearing from Elma. The first half of this evening's event, during which Elma will share her story and her son Donal's story, which some of you may be familiar with already, especially the young people here perhaps who have participated in the John Paul II Award. We'll hear some more music, and then there will be an opportunity to ask questions, and we'll have an interview with Elma, so please don't be afraid to think of some questions as well while she's speaking. So without further ado, I would love to welcome Elma.
I need my two hands. Now, seeing you're all talking about coming from all the directions of Belfast tonight, I came from the very, very southwest, you know. You think he did good by turning up here tonight? Now, you know, it's a little over 10 years, well, it's nearly 11 years ago, actually, now, when Donal passed away, but it's been some roller coaster for those past 11 years. And when he spoke on television, it was only for 19 minutes, and it was about living life and making the most of every day. He thought at the time that he was talking to teenagers, and he did not expect the response that he got from people of all ages, and never in a million years would he have expected the message to be as strong today as it was in 2013. As a result of the Saturday Night Show response, as a result of the Saturday Night Show, the response he left and his essay saying a teenager living in Ireland with cancer and terminal cancer was to be published in the Sunday Independent. And while he thought the response to the television show was big, he was certainly not expecting the result of that being published. People from all over the country and further afield wrote and told him how brave he was, how he saved lives, and how important their lives are. How he changed their lives, all because of what he started out as a 16-year-old schoolboy essay. But he didn't see himself as that. He wrote in another letter, "I have never fought for anyone but myself, therefore I cannot be brave or heroic. I've only been kind because my religion has taught me so. And what impact would I ever have in the world if I was fake? Or how would I ever be honourable if I was not honoured to be here?" Donal's love for living and his family and friends and community were very strong to him. He accepted that his was going to be a short time in this world, but he wanted the best for his friends. By writing the two letters, he thought he could reach young people, especially in one of them, and he said, "I realised I was fighting for my life for the third time in 4 years, and this time I have no hope. Yet, I still hear of young people committing suicide, and I'm sorry, but it makes me feel nothing but angry. I feel angry that these people choose to take their lives, to ruin their family and leave behind a mess that no one can clean up. Why is it that a 16-year-old young man could have such a profound effect that lasted for the final 6 weeks of his life and still has the same effect up and down this country nearly 11 years later? Honestly, Donal had nothing to gain from his intervention. Yet he still felt the need to intervene on this topic because he had seen 2 teenage suicides in Tralee of his own age group. His intervention as a young person recently diagnosed with terminal cancer was what gained the publicity. But it was the interview with Brendan that cemented Donal into the media, and for the following weeks landed us, his parents, with continuing his message through the foundation set up in his memory. It was the honesty of his words that brought the debate out to the forefront of the national and international media. In the interview, there were 3 distinct areas covered, namely Donal's cancer prognosis, his faith journey, and his appeal for young people to live life. When speaking at schools and parishes and clubs across this country, the two topics that come up in questions are about his faith and his appeal for people to live life. Young people are not without spirituality, but in recent years we seem to have lost the ability to harness and guide that, probably because of our fear of interference. Young people are seeking guidance for their faith and spirituality and see in Donal an example that they can relate to. Brendan O'Connor said of Donal at the time, "To an Ireland down at heel, materially and spiritually." Donal's words are a reminder to us to count our blessings and be thankful for the simple things in life. Donal, he said, the celestial tiger will forever burn bright in our memories for teaching us to value what we have when and while we have it. The Donal Walsh Foundation was established in 2013 after he died, all with donations that were sent to us. We decided to set up a foundation in his memory with that money and to continue the conversation he started before his untimely death by promoting his faith, anti-suicides and live life messages, particularly among his age group, that teenage population who are now in their mid to late 20s. The charity's vision is to reduce the suicide rate in teenagers and to continue promoting Donal's faith to live life. And we do this by speaking in schools across country and have now reached approximately 30,000 students a year. By relating Donal's journey and writings, we appeal to his peer audience and many others to seek help from their existing communities in teachers, counsellors, parents, coaches, chaplains, leaders. They should not end up in a dark room of depression without seeking help. Terence Casey, the recently deceased South Kerry coroner, noted that he had dealt with no teenage death for 4 years after Donal spoke out, while he had dealt with 27 the year for the 12 months that before Donal died. And while he could not attribute this directly to Donal, he said that he was a major catalyst in the reduction of teenage suicide across Ireland. At that time, as there is now, there was a huge discourse across Ireland regarding faith, respect and morality. Through his direct language, Donal was able to initiate a previously taboo subject into an open conversation about minding mental health, with teenagers in particular, and not consider suicide as an option. By being captured on media through his interviews, Donal and his story will forever remain that of a 16-year-old boy. But by being included in the school curriculum, in the religion books, in primary and secondary schools, both in the north and south of Ireland, as a young person of influence, and in religion programmes as a young person of faith, in schools he is introduced to a new audience each year. By representing the Donal Walsh Foundation, we are unique ambassadors who can contribute to the conversation by recounting his life to his target audience. To date, the Foundation have given out over €500,000 in teenage-related projects covering mental health, faith and hospice care, which we hope to benefit teenagers right into the future. Look, Donal was just an average 16-year-old boy who got up to the same antics as any other teenager. One of the first things he did after being diagnosed terminal was to make a fake ID. And now when I questioned him about that, he looked at me with those funny eyes and he said, "Mom, think about it. I'm not going to be here in 2 years' time. I'm not going to be 18 to get into nightclubs. So how could I argue with that?" But when he did ask for the fourth house party, I did put my foot down. And I said, "Donal, I don't care if you are dying. You're not having another house party." He chanced his arm as often as he thought he'd get away with it. And like any teenager, he loved his sports, his music and his clothes and his gadget. And like any boy, his favourite was pizzas and ice cream. And of course, the GAA and the rugby were his favourite sports. In Northern Ireland, you have built the stepping stones and are moving on to the blocks. Now it's time to go down the road and bring the people from the four corners of Belfast together to build a better future for each and every one of you. Remember, growth starts at the end of your comfort zone. Donal did not stop when he was told he had weeks, maybe months to live. He fought for 7 months, and he lived to see the summer of the following year. Now, what more can you do knowing that your whole lives are ahead of you? The growth and the future and the road are only starting for you. Every talk I give, I always, like every mother here knows, I leave the last word to my son. We all leave the last words to our sons, don't we? And I'm going to read one of those letters that Donal came to prominence with. Now, he wrote this letter 6 months before he passed away, shortly after he was diagnosed terminal. And he thought it would have more of an effect after he died. But I think it's because people saw Donal on television and knew what he was like. That's why it had the effect that it's having. And remember now, I was coming up through the country this morning and I was looking for mountains. And here I came all the way up to Belfast thinking the mountains in Mourne were going to be huge. You have to get down to Kerry and climb a few mountains, lads. Make sure to bring the walking shoes. This is the letter that Donal wrote. I live in a part of the world surrounded by mountains. I can't turn my head without finding a bloody hill or a mountain. And I suppose those were God's plans for me, to have me grow up around mountains and grow climbing a few too. And that's exactly what I have done. I may have grown up in body around them, but I have fully grown and matured in mind climbing his mountains. He's had me fight cancer 3 times, face countless deaths and losses in my life. He's had my childhood dreams taken off me, but at the end of the day, he's made me a man. I'm always called brave, heroic, kind, genuine, honourable, and so many other kind compliments. But I have to try and explain to everyone why I seem to reject them. I've never fought for anyone but myself. Therefore, I cannot be brave or heroic. I've only been kind because my religion has taught me so. And what impact would I ever have in the world if I was fake? Or how would I ever be honourable if I was not honoured to be here? I am me. There is no other way of putting it. Little old Donal Walsh from Tralee. One body, one mind, and a few other cobwebs and tails thrown in. I've climbed God's mountains, faced many struggles for my life and dealt with so much loss. And as much as I'd love to go around to every fool on this planet and open their eyes to the mountains that surround them in life, I can't. But maybe if I shout for mine, they'll pay attention. If I start to accept these compliments, I'm afraid of what I'll become. Will I be braver than ye? Will I be kinder than ye? More genuine than ye? Better than ye? No. I can never accept there is a ye. We are all the same. We're all given one body and one mind. The only difference for me is that I'm looking from the mountain. Donal Walsh.
Goodness, thank you so much. Damien Gorman, who's a friend of the festival, said a few years ago that stories are like the Eucharist. You break them to feed others. And is that not what we've just been hearing about tonight, as Donal, even passed away that many years, is still having a story broken to feed us. We're going to sing a couple of songs. I'm not going to, you'll be glad to know. Nor Gordon, actually, you'll be glad to know. Caroline's going to come. And we're still thinking, as in the Gospel of Sinead, this was an interesting moment in it, because if Peter hadn't gone down with COVID, you would have heard Caroline singing I Believe in You by Bob Dylan, which was the song she was to sing the night that she ripped up the photograph of the Pope. And all hell broke loose. It's a number of weeks later, and she has been all over the press, and she's had all kinds of judgment. And she's singing the last song on The Late Show on RTE. And there's a YouTube piece in this, and you should find it. Obviously, Gay Byrne, who was a pastor as well as a journalist, has been talking Sinead through her first public appearance since all the Bob Dylan effect. And they've obviously chosen a song. And she's obviously promised to sing that song because Gay's not going to let her just sing anything. But as Gay walks away from her and a couple of others that are speaking, he kind of tries to say that to her. Sinead, you're going to sing that one, aren't you? And she looks at him and goes, no, I'm not. And this is what she sings. Consider that.
Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, true faith in you. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy. Oh, Master, grant that I may never see so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned, in giving to all men that we receive, and dying that we're born to eternal life.
After all that had been going on in her life before that, around the turn of the millennium, Sinead made an album of theological songs. It's called Theology. And many of the songs are set in the Old Testament, which she particularly loved. You could understand that. And this is one of those songs that could be in our Sunday morning worship. And in fact, I don't know why we've never done it, but maybe we should.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. That's in for next week. You're on this Sunday then. Out of the depths.
Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. Don't let my cries for mercy be ignored. If you kept account of sins, who would stand? But you have forgiveness in your hand. And I've heard religion say you're to be feared. For oh, you're like a ghost in your own home. Nobody hears you crying all alone. For you are the one true, really voiceless one. They have their backs turned from you for worship of gold and stone. And to see you prisoner, oh, it makes me weep. Nobody hears you screaming in the streets. And it's sad but true how the old saying goes. If God lived on earth, people would break his windows. Long for you as a watchman longs for the end of night. Oh, I long for you as a watchman longs for the end of night. Oh, I long for you.
Thank you for the lovely music. Elma, I imagine it was a pretty earth-shattering moment when Donal received that diagnosis. Can you take us back to that time for him and for you as a family?
It was, to see, you have to take into context that he was diagnosed in 2008 and he'd fought cancer for 6 months. He was on chemotherapy. We'd be in Dublin for 3 weeks, home for 1 week. And that went on for, actually it went on for 9 months, because in the middle of it he had to have his knee removed where the tumour was and an operation there. So, you know, he fought hard and he had to give up sports. He loved sports. So the impact sports were no help to him, because if he fell, his bone would break with the metal that was inside it, the metal sheet that was inside him. And then he came along and he was grand for about 2 years, and then he got lung cancer. And again, he fought that. There was half his lung removed. And we thought, this is it. Like, we got the all clear a second time, and we said, like, you know, he's been through all of it now and this is all clear. And then just a few months later, that was in February, he got the all clear in June, and in October he was told that it's back and there's no more drugs. And that's when he was diagnosed terminal. And it was a huge shock, and it was so disappointing to fight so hard and then just to be told that it was terminal, and that, like, he was told, you have weeks, you may have months to live, but they said you won't be here this time next year. And he was devastated for, you know, all of 2 days. Honest to God, you wouldn't believe it. Like, he was really upset for 2 days, saying, why me and everything. And then he said, I noticed after about a week, it took me a week to cop that he was all right. And I said, Donal, why are you so relaxed about it, like, how come you're not screaming your head off? And he said, Mum, sure, when you think about it, he said, think of all the kids in Crumlin that died before me. He said, sure, I'm no more important than any of them, you know. And he put it in perspective in his own mind, and he was able to cope with it then, and he was sure then that his was a journey meant for something. Now, he never knew what at the time. You know, it wasn't, that was in October time of year. It really wasn't until April that he was asked on to the Brendan O'Connor show. And again, that all happened, you know, accidentally. There was nothing planned, there was nothing organised. And he was just asked on to the Brendan O'Connor show to speak about those 2 letters that he wrote. And that's what happened then. So after that, then he said, Mum, I think my mission is sorted. So.
As an outsider looking in, when Donal becomes a bit of a public personality, the sense is that he was the beneficiary of a really wholesome, strong upbringing to be able to speak so publicly into something so painful. At what point, or at any point, do you and the family kind of regroup and start to see the possibilities and opportunities in a set of circumstances that would floor most families?
In all honesty, we didn't see the opportunity. It was other people saw it. We didn't. I can't take credit for it. There was a woman in County Cavan, King's Court in County Cavan, that kept ringing me to go up there, and I said, no, I've never spoken anywhere, and I'm not speaking anywhere, no. And she said, look, you better go and get a diary, she said, because you're going to be very busy. And that's how it all happened. It isn't that we organised anything, like people still, we never ask to go anywhere. I've never asked to go to a school or a meeting like here or anything. We've never asked to go anywhere. People just keep asking us. So it wasn't, you know, I suppose the foundation was set up is because, as I said earlier on, that when Donal when Donal went on television, an awful lot, must have looked very poor because an awful lot of people were sending us money. Well, they were sending him money, but he couldn't spend it. And I opened an account in Tralee Bank and I started putting the money in there. Now, not knowing what I was going to do with it, I had no plans made or anything. For his funeral, you know, the way that sometimes there's a collection at a funeral for a charity, well, we'd given that to the Kerry Hospice and Care for Kids in Kerry, which is kind of like Make-A-Wish, a small version of Make-A-Wish for Kerry. But so we'd given 30,000 that was collected at the funeral to that, and then we thought that was it. And then the money still kept coming in, even after he died. You'd feel like writing back and saying, look, we don't need it. So that's how we set up the foundation. And again, we never asked for money for the foundation. People did charity walks, they did cycles, they did everything. You can bake sales, walk my shoe days. They did a whole load of different collections throughout the country and further afield in England as well. And in Saudi Arabia to this present day, they collect, they send money out to us every year. Different places throughout the world, they keep sending us money. And so that's what we've done. Tralee Hospice has benefited from a teenage room, and Limerick Hospice and all the Pieta houses in Ireland now have teenage counselling rooms that weren't there before. And then with his faith, we give it to the shrine at Knock Shrine, Marian Shrine, because a few years ago, about 7 or 8 years ago now, we were asked to have his annual anniversary mass at Knock. And we do every year, and 2,500 to 3,500 people come every year from across Ireland, and it's a kind of a standing event now, so I've no choice in the running of that anymore. And so if you're free on Thursday, the 9th of May, please come to Knock. Experience it. It is really wonderful to see all the young people there and the respect they show for Knock and everything.
I find it incredible that both yourself, your family and Donal were thinking of others at a time when you would have been forgiven very much for batting down the hatches and focusing on yourselves at such a difficult time. But to touch on your last point a little bit, what role did faith play in all of this for Donal and for the family?
Oh, faith was a huge part of Donal's life. He even said it on the Saturday night show, and you think about it, like a 16-year-old boy speaking on public television said that his faith was a huge part of his life and he wouldn't be here today without it. Donal just had an innate faith. We weren't an over-religious family. We didn't say the rosary every night. We went to Mass. We looked after observed the holy days of obligation, but we weren't overly religious by any standards, you know. But Donal just had it in him. I can't describe it, but the only thing I can say is he was 12 when he was diagnosed with cancer, and that was I think it was September that he started chemotherapy. And about a month or two later, he said to me in Crumlin Hospital when he was waiting for the chemos, he'd say, "Mum, come on, we'll say the rosary." You know, it wasn't me that instigated, it was him. And it was just in him. I can't take credit for that, to be honest with you, but he'd no fear of dying. He really, really had no fear of dying. He just really wanted to live. I suppose there's two things there. One time he said to me, "Mum, I'd live with all the pain if I could just live till I was 80. And the other one was when he was dying and when the priest anointed him, Father Padraig, he said, "Donal, were you afraid? Are you afraid of dying?" And Donal said, "No, Father, just a little nervous." So he was just nervous of the transition. And that was Donal. He really was not afraid of dying. He knew where he was going. He knew what he was facing, and he totally accepted it.
An incredible witness. To move on to a slightly different angle within the story, as I'm sure you know, suicide rates in Northern Ireland have been on an upward trajectory for some time now, among the worst in the UK, and roughly 80% of those who die by suicide here are male. The crisis that Donal was speaking to and that you continue to speak into today remains here in Belfast. What do you think Donal would be saying to particularly young males who are experiencing those feelings today?
He actually did a recording for the HSE, and it's very popular down south. And the numbers are rising down south as well. It's not just in the north. They are rising slowly but surely. But he did say in that interview, look, he said to seek help, and he said a door is open. A door will always open. He said you just have to knock on the door. But he said it takes a lot of courage as well to knock on that door and ask for help. And I think that was his main message to young people before he died, was to knock on that door, ask for help, and have the courage. You know, he said it takes a lot of courage to ask for help, but just ask for help and it will be there. It was a huge message that he wanted to get across to young people, was that their lives are valuable, and every life, he used to say, every life is unique. You know, everyone's life is special and unique, and nobody will live the same, no two people will live the same life. And it was a point that he really tried to reiterate and get across again and again, was to live your life. You know, he said one time, he said, "Mom, if they could just live their life, the life I know I'm not going to live." So he just really wanted people to go out there and live their lives.
Mm-hmm. A very much hope-filled message. And of course that's what you would say and what Donal would say to young people in Ireland today, in Northern Ireland. Mental health services, especially in Northern Ireland, have really suffered over the last few years with an absence of a government, but thank God hope has prevailed in the last week or so. But what would Donal say to politicians and members of civic society if he were here today on that issue? What would you say to them?
Yeah, he actually wrote about it in that piece that was in the Sunday Independent. It's still freely available on the internet. I know what he wrote about the conditions of hospitals for young people, for teenagers. At the time when Donal was diagnosed with cancer, he was 12 years old, but he was 6 feet tall. He was 5'10", I'd say, at the time. He was 6'3" when he died, and he had to go into a bed, a children's bed, where they had to take the bottom off because his legs were too long. We were in a room with 2 single beds, and the parents had to pull out sleeping beds and sleep next. One parent always had to be with a child, and we had pull-out beds, and we had to lie in those. And there was one sink between Donal and the other patient, and one wardrobe. And he wrote in his writings, he said, what was the way he said it? those suited men up in the government house, if they came and could just see that this place needed more than a lick of paint and see what we had to go through while we're suffering one of the worst diseases in the world, and the sickest ward in Ireland, which is St. John's Ward in Crumlin Hospital. So I think he'd be very cross with politicians. I don't think he'd spare them. He didn't spare them when he was alive, and he certainly wouldn't today. They can do so much more than they're doing, and it's all right to talk. Talking is fine, but talking won't get you the help that you need to be active and proactive, and they need to get out there and do the things for the community and for the sickest people in the community. And mental health is a huge issue. Worldwide, mental health is a huge issue. It really needs more than what any government are putting into it.
Hear, hear. At this point, I do have one or two more questions, but I would like to open up the floor to some questions, perhaps. If anybody does have a question, please just raise your hand, and Steve will bring the yellow mic to you. Any questions?
They always this quiet in Belfast.
No.
They love to talk.
You mentioned that Donal's writings have been included in the curriculum in the South. Has there been any discussion about including some of that in the curriculum in the North?
It's in the North.
It is in the
It's
curriculum?
in the North and the South, yeah, in both primary and secondary.
In both primary and
Yeah.
secondary.
Now,
Thank you.
it's not the, they don't change the religion books that often, but the new ones that are coming out, he's there. He's on the same page with Mother Teresa.
Right. So it'll only be in denominational schools in the North then, so it won't be across the education.
Although it's in the SPHE in the South, so I'm not 100% certain about that side of it now, to be honest.
Yeah, they don't have SPE up here.
All right, SPHE.
I've lived here 33 years.
All right. It's the social side of school that for those that don't know, it's the social side of teaching that he's definitely in the South, because it isn't always religion classes that contact us, so that's how I know he's in the other classes as well. But yeah, it's a pity that he isn't in the more denominations. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. And good travelling, because that's a long journey.
Thanks.
I used to think it was long to go to Cork, but 33 years. Any other questions? Come on. Oh, yes. Now we're on the move. We're on the move, I can tell.
Hey, yeah, I'll stand up because I can't see you. I just wondered how you are. You know, you're talking about Donal's journey and Donal's mission, but then it's been passed on to you, and it's something that you maybe didn't expect to do, but have taken that on. So I'm just wondering about you yourself and your family, and how you're coping then with the aftermath of everything.
It was tough at the start. I can't lie. I was cross with everyone. My mother and father died within 4 months of each other, about a year before 2 years maybe before Donal died, and I was cross with them. How could they let this happen? How could God let this happen? How could, Donal? He didn't do anything wrong. Like, he wasn't the model child. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't the model child that killed him, but then. And I stopped going to Mass, and I stopped all this after he died. And about a few months later, I felt that I was no better after the week he died. Do you know what I mean? That I hadn't improved in those few months. And then I thought about Donal and what he said about the children and how his faith was strong. And I said, no, he was right. So I went back to going to Mass. And it took me a long time. I cried my eyes out for months going in the door. Why, I don't know. But it took a long time, and eventually then it, I won't say year even, it was years, It was 2 or 3 years before I got my head around it. And it was the same for Gemma and Finbar as well. It definitely affected Gemma in a huge way. I think that when Donal died, she was in college, but she never followed up on the course that she did, but she's gone back to college and she's doing another course now and she's much more enjoying that. But I think that's what prevented her from, there's grief is very strange, and everybody will be affected by grief differently, and every death is different as well. So, it did take a while, but the results that we get from talking in schools and different places, in a few weeks' time, I can guarantee you I'll get a letter from somebody here or from somebody that you told this about. Always we'll get a letter from a place that we've been in that, a parent might write and say, God, my child came home with this issue, or my son or daughter couldn't believe what was said. And recently there was a girl that went home and she said it to her uncle, and he got the help that they didn't know he needed. And so that's kind of what keeps us going and doing what we're doing, plus the fact that you're very persistent in asking all the time.
Father Martin McGill, do you have a question?
Here he is, sitting like a pixie up here.
I'm afraid of this one.
Elma, thank you very much for the power of the story that you've shared with us. I really resonated with something you said there. You talked there about growth begins at the edge of our comfort zone. Could you say a little bit more about that? That just seems so powerful, particularly from where you're speaking.
Well, I suppose we all aim for something. We all have goals and we all aim for something. And when I go into schools, it's usually the TYs, which is about 15, 16 years. What do you call that here?
They don't have a transition year.
Transition year, yeah.
They really need to get it.
Yeah, it should. It's really good. I'm not being smart or anything now, but it really is a good year for the students. But it's that 16, 17-year-old, and they're planning their future and they're planning their goals in life and everything. And very few people get their goal in life the way they want to, directly. You always have to turn. There's curves and different ways down the road to get your goal in life. Maybe you mightn't get the points that you needed or the marks that you needed or whatever it is, the grades that you need to get whatever you want, but there might be another way of getting it what you want. And when you reach your goal, that isn't the end, that's only the beginning. That's when all the fun starts, is when you reach the goal and you can develop what you've studied or what you've done or what you've promoted or what you've produced. And that's where the fun lies. And growth should never, ever, ever stop when you reach your own goal. And I suppose that's where I'm coming from. Does that answer the question? That's where I'm coming from with that, is that everybody has a goal in life. My goal is to get home tomorrow safely. I'm not going to just stop at my own door. I might even go out tomorrow night. But, we all have goals in life, and just to reach your goal and then move on from there, go the next step, and you never know you just don't know what's around the corner. Nobody should ever stop at reaching their goal.
We all had a little bit of a chuckle, I think, when you mentioned Donal and Mother Teresa being on the same page of the textbook, but I think rightly so. Donal is a saint. If you had to describe Donal in one word...
Does that make me a martyr?
If you had to describe Donal in one word, what would it be?
Okay. The one word that I use for Donal is stubborn. He was as stubborn, oh my God, if he had a goal or a point to prove or something, he didn't stop until he got there. But I always say to the young people in school, and you can take this and use it, be stubborn with yourselves. Be stubborn and be thick and be determined for the goals that you want in life. Because there's no point in blaming anybody else if you don't reach those goals. You can only blame yourself. And, Donal was told in October time of year, you have weeks, you may have months to live. And shortly after that, he started developing a lot of tumours down his spine. And we used to have to go to Cork for radiation. Now, Tralee to Cork is a 2-hour journey, so it's a long day. You're down, you're 2 hours down, you're another 2 hours there getting the radiation and another 2 hours back. So it is a long day. Although they've shortened it now with the Macroom bypass. But so that happened at the end of December, at the beginning of December. And on the 10th day, it was called staggered radiation. We had to do it for 10 days in a row. And on the 10th day, the doctor called us aside and said, look, maybe you should start thinking about having an early Christmas. And that was one very disappointing day. I always remember it was cold, it was miserable, there was frost, there was snow on the county bounds coming home. It was horrible in more ways than one, physically and mentally. And when we reached Tralee, Donal said, Mom, I don't care what he said, I want Christmas on Christmas Day with all the trimmings. And I said, then no problem, we'll do that. So we did, we wrote to Sante and he came with all the remote control gadgets, even for me. We had a great day. He went on to do his Debs after that, albeit a year early. He went on to the generosity of complete strangers. Now this is months before anybody ever heard of Donal on television. This was in January, and through the generosity of complete strangers that we'd never met before, who live in Tullamore. One of them was talking to Finbar's brother one day and he said, you know, I have a Ferrari and I'd love to give him a spin in the Ferrari. And then the guy who had the Ferrari has a friend with a helicopter. And he said, sure, I'll give him a spin in the helicopter. So ladies, if you're looking for wealthy men, go down to Tullamore. So one day we were at home and the helicopter arrived and Donal and his dad and a friend got on the helicopter. But I had to drive up the country because somebody had to bring them home. So we got to Tullamore, and of course the fella who had the helicopter owned the bloody hotel. So we stayed the night. And now what I didn't realise was the following day was, I thought your man was going to give him a spin around Tullamore. But what I didn't realise was that he gave him the keys of his Ferrari. Now can you imagine, Donal learned to drive about, no exaggeration, 5, maybe 6 weeks before that. He'd no insurance, he'd no licence, he was 16 years old. And can you imagine giving him the keys of your Ferrari? I wouldn't have given him the keys of my bike. And he left him drive from Tullamore to Birr on the open road. And he clocked him, filmed. So, but you know, we all won't be wealthy and we all won't own helicopters or anything like that. Everyone here will get the chance to do something kind and good for somebody in life. It doesn't matter if it's an opening a door for somebody, nodding to somebody, smiling at somebody. It can be something very, very simple. We would all get the opportunity to be kind. And I can never stress how much kindness can help people, just being kind to people. And that was okay then. He was coming up to East, that was in January. In February, he got to go to Paris with his cousins because we hadn't done anything with the family. You know, time was moving on because you were going to doctors and palliative care and maintaining his medication and everything and trying to keep him at home, trying to keep him get to do the things he wanted to do. He asked, when he was first diagnosed terminal, he asked for a few things. He asked to receive Holy Communion every day, which he did. And he asked to get out of bed every day and go somewhere. And he asked to die with a clean spirit. And I think, you know, trying to get him through all those and to get all that organised. So we went to Paris and he had a great time in Paris with his cousins. But then coming up to East, now at this stage, you'll notice if you watched back on the YouTube, the Brendan O'Connor show, his arm was breaking with the cancer because his bones were disintegrating. He was in a wheelchair, his ankles were going, and he was on oxygen because the cancer had got to his lungs. But they did say, look, whatever it is you want to do it before Easter. And then his local teachers published an essay that he'd written 12 months before that. And that's what was printed on the local paper. And that's what Brendan O'Connor picked up on. And remember now, he was a stubborn and he's still there. This is going into April. And this is what I was talking about, stubbornness earlier on. I don't want to lose the strain of thought of stubbornness. When they told him he was going to die, he didn't take that on board at all. And who appeared in the Brendan O'Connor show the week after Easter was Donal. And the impact that has had has led me here tonight. But on the 1st of May, he was upstairs in bed and he shouted down to me, Mom, come up quick. And I ran up the stairs and I said, oh my God, what am I going to find? And there he was lying in his bed, happy out. I said, what is wrong with you? Why did you rush me up the stairs? And he said, Mom, do you know what day today is? Today is the first day of summer, he said. Fuck the doctors, Mom, I made it to the summer. So that was his stubbornness and his drive and determination. So I always tell that to young people in schools, because you have to, as I said earlier on, goals, they don't end. You know, you have to keep them going. And to get your goals in life, you have to be stubborn with yourself. No point in being stubborn with anybody else, only yourself.
Our stories towards a culture of hope. Elma, you have epitomised our theme tonight. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for making the journey, and we wish you a safe journey back to Tralee tomorrow. Thank you.
More than welcome.
Thank you, Elma. Your son was a tremendous human being, but the writing that you shared that he was writing in his mid-teens in that situation was quite remarkable writing as well. So I hope more of us get to read some of the stuff that you were reading tonight. We have one more song, and Shannon's singing this one with Danny on guitar, and another one from our Gospel According to Sinead. When I was trying to work out how to finish that evening, Sinead had sung this song. It's a Blind Willie Johnson song, and it's on an album called God Don't Ever Change. And this is a song called Trouble Soon Be Over. And it seems an appropriate way to finish.
Trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. Trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. Christ is my burden bearer, he's my only friend. Till the end of my sorrow, he tells me to lean on him. Oh, trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. Trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. God is my strong protection, he's my bosom friend. Trouble all around me, I know will take me in. Oh, trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. Trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. He proved a friend to David and hid him in a cage. The same God that David served will give me a rest someday. Oh, trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. Trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. Will my burden be heavy? My enemies crush me down. Someday I'll rest with Jesus and wear a starry crown. Oh, trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. Trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. I'll take this yoke upon me and live a Christian life. Take Jesus for my Savior, my burden will be light. Oh, trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. Trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. My burden may be heavy, my enemies crush me down. Someday I'll rest with Jesus and wear a starry crown. Oh, trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end. Trouble soon be over, sorrow will have an end.
to sing. Stand here. Folks, can I ask for our musicians, for our singers, and for our Elma, our guest tonight, and Shannon interviewing, can I ask for one big final round of applause? Thank you. A couple of little things just to share with you before we go. If someone here has a silver car, registration begins TUI. There's no issue with it. But if you wouldn't mind just speaking to Gordon, I think one of the neighbours just needs it moved, so it's no big issue. A few very quick things before we go. The envelopes for donation look like this. They're at the back. There's buckets there. They're in the door on the way out as well. That survey that we were talking about is really, really useful to us if you do that. If you signed up for a ticket for this event, you will have received an email. You can get a link to the survey that way. There's also a QR code on the big Four Corners pop-up banner on your way out, or where we're going for tea and coffee if you're going around to the left there on your way out. And that's the last thing, is we'd love to see as many of you as possible joining us for refreshments afterwards and a bit more of a chat, because that's an important part of what we're doing here too. So thank you very much for this evening, and I'll let you make your way out. Thank you.